All right, so happy Saturday, everyone. We hope that today finds you well. Thank you for joining us as every Saturday
Hmm.
as we begin to look at what's going on in education during COVID. I am Dr. Quinyon Scott, and I am here with
The Washington Post Teacher of the Year, Christina Cook. Boop.
Yes, Washington Post Teacher of the Year. So let me tell you about this whole Washington Post Teacher of the Year before we get started. So I was on the alumni call the other day, and one of our alumni members said, I just love when your colleague says Washington Post Teacher of the Year. She said, that is something she said, if I ever got it, she said, I would say it too. And I was like, yes, honey, yes, because it's such an honor. So we thank you so much for sharing that and encourage somebody that there are
Yeah,
others that want the title,
yeah,
right?
go
And
for it,
so it can be yours, right? It can absolutely be yours. And so I just wanted to share that with you, that it does make a difference, right? So
Great.
this week, Cook. Oh, before we get started, let me do a quick disclaimer that what we say today does not represent our workplace or the institutions that we attended. We
Right.
are speaking of our own individual values.
Yep.
And this week is going to be juicy. So, as many of y'all know, I live in Baltimore, right? I work in DC. I live in Baltimore. Most would not call that the DMV, but some do. But over the last month now, Cook, Fox 45 has not let this situation go with the young man being at Augusta Fell Savage School. So, for those of you that have not heard, right, because of course we broadcast across the country, and although this has made international news, I just want to we just want to lay out the groundwork. So the situation is, a couple weeks ago, on or about a month ago now, Fox 45 did this news story, and it was about a young man who ideally his mother was expecting him to be a senior, but he
Hmm.
only had 2.5 credits
Hmm.
and he had a 0.13 GPA. So his mom went on the news, and her appeal was it wasn't fair for her son to be in this situation. The school never contacted her. She's
Yeah.
assuming her baby's going to graduate, but her baby's not graduating. And so since then, since this mom's appeal, and during her show, we called her Tiff Tiff.
Tiff, tiff,
Now, her
yeah.
name is Tiffany. I've been thinking about whether or not we were respectful or disrespectful. So I'm just going to say Tiffany today. Okay.
Okay.
And so since this appeal from his mom, Fox 45 has not let the situation go. I mean, this has been on and on for the past month, and so much has come out. So one of the things that has come out is that the young man was not attending school. They said that
Hmm.
he missed over 237 days or 73 days. I always get my numbers mixed up.
Hmm.
And so, between attendance and absences, another thing that's come out is that the school leaders were under investigation.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things about it is that the Fox 45 did a news story in 2019 to another school, Briscoe, in the city. And they connect the principal from Briscoe was under investigation at Briscoe and then moved to Augusta Fell Savage.
Hmm.
Well, that principal left Augusta Fell Savage and another principal came. Then that principal went under investigation, and technically she still is, or I think she just recently left the district, like within the last 30 days. But
Yeah.
her and the assistant principal had been under investigation for over a year. In this time that they were under investigation for over a year, they received over $300,000. So the latest of Fox 45, after the governor has weighed it, after the governor has made input, after the mayor has made input, not directly to Fox 45, but to another network,
Hmm.
there's lots of questions that have come out. One of the major questions that have come out is that, do parents have the right to know that the school leaders are under investigation? And so that's what we're going to dive deep into today, because Fox 45 is saying that the parents of the students at Augusta Falls should have had the opportunity to know that that the school leaders were under investigation.
Yeah.
The letter indicates that the school leaders would be removed indefinitely, but doesn't say why. But they were notified that the school leaders were moving or were gone. Put your parent hat on today. I see you got your African garb on this morning.
I'm giving you a little Wakanda.
Yes, honey. Yes. Put your parent hat on this morning and give me parents of, do you believe it's your business, right? Like, do you believe knowing this information is impacting you as a parent at all?
All right. Okay. I'm gonna answer as a parent, and then we'll switch to what the law says. Okay.
Okay.
As a parent, I'm nosy. I want to know why you're not at work. If you got a cold, I want to know, is it COVID? If you leave early, I want to know, do you have a headache? Because as a parent, I'm thinking, what is the impact of you not being there having on my kid? And who's the sub? Have they been vetted? Have they taught before? So yes, as a parent, only because I'm nosy, not because it's my right to know, I would just want to know to feel like I've been empowered. They say knowledge is power, but really it's applied knowledge that's power. So yes, as a parent, I feel like I should know. Now, the question is it my right to know? And I think the answer is no, because even in this moment, Dr. Scott, I'm thinking about when we had situations involving multiple students and consequences, and parents often wanted to know, well, what was the other kid's consequence? And legally, we were not at liberty to discuss what another parent or another student's consequence was. The only response we would typically give is that it's being handled. And even as a parent, I would be like, well, if you don't tell me who the child's name is, my child is going to tell me and I'll handle it. So to answer your first question, as a nosy parent, because that's who I am, I would want to know.
What is the benefit of knowing? So, okay, I get it. Right? We all got a little nosiness in us, right? I understand that. But even in your nosiness, what is the benefit of knowing?
Just to say that I knew.
Okay, so you got some good tea, right? So that's
just to say like, oh, okay, because I wouldn't want to feel like the wool was being pulled over my eyes. Now, again, is it my right? No. If that teacher's absence isn't negatively impacting, or that leader's absence isn't negatively impacting my student, then no, I could say no, thank you to the information, but I'm just nosy.
Got it. Now, I agree. I have a different look, right? And I think it's because I can't get past the school leadership part, that it's not essential for anyone to know. I also think about the impact of the person being under investigation. So in Baltimore City, an administrator can be under investigation through an anonymous phone call. So
okay, come on,
I can use the anonymous call line as an irate parent, as an irate teacher. I can call that line and say, and do trigger words, right? Like, my principal just sent out a letter saying that we're going to change grades.
I got you.
And it may not, and I'll give you an example of like changing grades. So if you give a child a 69, right? I've done this. We have 69s, we have 79s, we have 89s. I have sent a letter and gotten in trouble for it, by the way, saying, okay, look, why would you give them specifically a 69? Why would you give them a 69? A 59. A 59 is failing, right? A 60 is not. We're talking about 1 point. So instead of me saying, okay, just change the 59 because it's stupid. Why would you put a student in a situation where by 1 point the student fails?
Mhm.
I said, let's change the 59, the 69, the 79, and the 89, because ideally, 1 point should not determine a lesser letter grade.
Yeah.
It's 1 point. Now, your idea of socially emotionally trying to teach a student a lesson, I get it,
Yeah.
right? I'm the teacher. You only earned the 89, so I'm not giving you the 90.
Yeah.
But the difference in the letter grade when you are calculating the
It
GPA,
makes a difference.
and I've always led college and career schools, then ultimately our job is to support those students in preparing for college. And
Mhm.
part of that support in preparing for college is ensuring that they have a quality GPA that'll help
Yes.
them get there. And
Yes.
it's a huge difference between an A and a B, a B
It,
and a C, a C and a D, and a D
D,
and a
D
family.
and F. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I've made that call, and I've definitely come under fire for making that call. Why are
Mhm.
you encouraging teachers to change grades? Say what you may,
Mhm.
right? It's a philosophy decision,
Yeah, it is.
and I the goal was to anchor it in the best of the student and not necessarily the teacher's feelings. So the teacher decides, I'm going to call central office, I'm going to put in this complaint, and an investigation starts. Is it fair to, and sometimes an investigation takes place where you are not on leave, you're still in the building
Mhm.
while
Gotcha.
investigation is going on. And then other times you're on leave and investigation is going on. If families are aware every time there is an investigation,
Yeah.
what is the impact of how a family will begin to view that school leader in
Yeah.
that position?
Well, I love that you made that plain, right? And in that case, I need to mind my nosy business because I mean, I'm sure school leaders get those kind of complaints all the time about things. And so there wouldn't be a great impact. The impact would be it will create this negative culture that's now breaking trust with a school and that family. And so I think from that perspective, no, those are, I don't want to say minor incidents, but it's I don't think that's necessarily school noteworthy, right? That parents need to be made aware of that because in some cases, that's helping the student and that family out long term with that particular example that you just named about grades.
Yeah, and the teacher is in their feelings, and so they don't
Right,
look at it as long-term support. They
right,
look at it as that the leader is undermining um,
right.
the grade that they actually impose. And then sometimes it could be other things.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this: I love a good team building exercise.
Come on now.
And we're talking about this because people, investigation is such a buzzword. And
It
I'm
is.
kind of appalled. I love Baltimore City. In fact, I keep saying that I am hoping that one day I'll have an opportunity to go back. It's by far the greatest work experience I've ever had. It was
Mhm.
14 years, a part of my amazing career. And
Yeah.
when I think about Baltimore City and the students, there's this level of love that takes place in the city. And you're like, my predecessor would say, every day you're fighting a war. And you're
Yeah.
at war because you have a love for children, but societal ills negatively impact you. So you're constantly having to fight on behalf of children.
Yeah.
And so, anyway, first of the year, I'm doing this team building exercise. And one of the team building exercises was that we are the light. And so I got like these candles, kind of like in a candle visual. And so I lit the light. I lit my candle first. I got
Mhm.
all the teachers in a circle, and then I lit my admin's light, my
Mhm.
APs, and then they lit the teacher's light. And this idea that everybody's light was lit and
Yeah.
that we need each other's light, so that if my light burns out, that should be able to go to somebody else's light and get light from them. And the
Yeah.
idea was that, the wind was blowing, some lights were like, everybody's light wasn't lit at the same time. And this idea was that in order for us to have a great school year, we have to be able to depend on each other.
Absolutely.
So, honey, I thought I was on fire that day. I was like, okay, PD, principal, like you really doing it.
This little light of mine.
Now let me give you the real good tea. A teacher said that I was making them pray. Now, Chad, I ain't say nothing about no prayer.
Right.
I might have sounded a little gospel, a little churchy, but I ain't even mentioned the Holy Ghost or God. And homegirl had me under investigation.
Yeah.
They came in. The crazy part is I took a good vacay. I was in Paris. I got an emergency phone call while I was in Paris, child, that I was under investigation. I said, oh, they wait till I go to good Paris.
Right, the good
I was on
Paris.
tour. I went to Germany, London, and Paris. So anyway, I get the phone call. They can't tell me what's going on, but one of the APs that was being asked questions was giving me the heads up, like,
Yeah.
hey, this is what they asked me, this is what's going on. And I said, oh my goodness. So
Yeah.
there was nothing I could do but pray. You know what I mean? It's
Absolutely
going to be what it's going to be.
Yeah.
But that's a prime example of here the intent was good,
but the impact
somehow was negative. She was an atheist. Well, so technically you don't know who called, right? But you have your idea, because they run their mouths. And so ideally the person that was truly offended and tried to like get others hype, she was an atheist. And she felt like it was a service for like invoking spirits, when all we said was like, look, this is a light, and let's just help each other as we get through the school year, because the previous school year we had lost a student, and so people were still grieving
about that.
From that loss of a student. So I say all that to say that the investigation piece is hard. I think that we have to be very kind to school leaders, because we're so judgmental. I was in the nail salon, here it is a month later, and people are still talking about Tiffany and how negative she was, and how she doesn't love her kids, because if she loved her kids, she wouldn't have been in this situation. And I think as I had to understand that judgment negatively impacts people.
Yeah, it does.
People who there may have been other factors there, right, where those other factors are now negatively impacting her son. I'll also say this, that a couple weeks ago we mentioned that he had a 0.13 GPA and he was ranked 62 out of 120 students. And Dr. Santalisa, who is the CEO of Baltimore City Public Schools, she made a statement during the board meeting the other day, which was, I thought was brilliant, and I didn't think about it at the time, that you are ranked by your class, by your cohort, your freshman, sophomore, junior, senior cohort. And if he was a freshman, you have to remember other freshman students that are there have not yet received a GPA, because typically freshmen don't receive their GPA until the end of January or the end of the year, because they haven't earned any credits yet. Ideally, the only reason why he has credits is because he failed or he hasn't passed all of the classes, but he still had more classes than the average freshman coming in. 2.5 is way more than a true ninth grader coming in who would have none. That could be a clear reason why he is ranked so high, even with a low GPA. The rest of the students, their GPA is 0.
Hadn't been calculated yet. I think you raise a lot of good points, and I just wanted to shout out. I keep looking over because I'm looking at our chat. Good morning, Miss Cannon, Miss Marsh. Lovely to see you. Dr. Bagley's in the building. Miss Sharita said, I always adored your look. So I'm just making sure I'm monitoring the chat as we go through. But I think you bring up a lot of good points about like value systems. And when people join your organizations, like we don't necessarily know what people value until after it's tried and tested, right? Because I'm thinking about, a former school that you and I worked with, where there was some criticism around our Black History Month assemblies being too churchy, and that people were invoking this spirit. And I'm thinking, you don't talk about Black people without talking about the church. It's almost synonymous when we're thinking about how we got over and how people would run and complain versus seeking to understand and to acknowledge, another culture. So it's making me really think in this moment, right, about like being culturally aware. Just because everyone's Black doesn't mean that we're all culturally aware, because you have some Black folks that think it don't take that much. And I, not to, shift us, but it's making me think in this moment about just the world and what has happened in Atlanta with the Asian community, right? And how, this is really just, again, a power from white folks to do what they normally been doing. And, we've seen how the media has spun this story to be, he's having a bad day. No, he's horrible. And so it's just making me think, like, as a leader, how do you invest people in the interview process or throughout the process that you don't have to worry about always looking behind your back when you're trying to do what's right for children? Because look, let's just call it out. Dr. Scott, you remember me taking a bottle of holy oil. What did I do with that holy oil?
You started anointing the desk and the walls. And I was like, child, we all going to jail today. Okay.
And guess what I said? Listen, I'll go to jail today for Jesus. Like, and I don't know if anybody reported it or not, but I'm just thinking about people who understood, knew what I was doing. It wasn't, I don't know. It's just making me really evaluate the snakes in the people that I'm around more often than not in a school building, right? Because everybody has their agenda. And I think people think if they go run tell that makes them look more empowering. No, it actually makes you look like a snake. It makes you look worse. Because it's funny, I was having this conversation with a good brother of mine yesterday, and he was talking to me about a situation that was going on in his school. And I said, the hard part is people don't know how to come to people on realness when they have issues. They go and tell other people and try to get this crowd to rally around them instead of just standing up saying, hey, this offended me, or hey, can you tell me more about that? To just understand. People are not seeking really to understand. We're just seeking to like get over. And I think that's what bothers me about this situation with Baltimore. It bothers me with the situation with Kirk Franklin. It bothers me on so many levels about how people always have their mouth in something that really doesn't concern them.
Yeah, when I think about the school, so one of the things that the mayor said here was that Mayor Scott, he's very young. I don't know how old he is. It's his first term. And he made a comment on a radio show that in Baltimore, there are literally failure factories. And so everybody knows about the failure factories in the city.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking about our large urban districts where ideally we have a large population of Black and brown young women, young men that are getting a failing education.
Yeah.
And oftentimes in those schools where the students are failing, part of the failure lies with low morale of the staff, folks not really being able to work together.
Yeah.
This idea of like, I'm trying to be the leader or I'm trying to get ahead, so let me make you look bad. I mean, it happens everywhere. Like every organization is plagued with these kind of things, but it often happens particularly at a larger impact where you have schools that are failing at a tremendous rate because of all of the social emotional issues that are aligned with failing and being part of a failing system. And so the question really becomes, what is the answer? Is the answer, in some cases many years ago, the answer was like, let's just clean house, we get rid of everybody and we start all over. In Augusta Fells, the answer has been, let's just get rid of the principal and the AP and we'll just keep getting rid of them. But one of the issues when you get rid of the leader leader is that it takes 3 to 5 years to get momentum. So if you get rid of a leader every 2 years, which in most failing organizations, that's what happens.
Yep.
How do you ever get momentum when you continuously get rid of the person who is leading the way out of the tragedy?
Yeah, because I think the one piece that I didn't hear you mention, and it was intentional, we didn't mention surveying, talking to staff and teachers, right? It's always easy to replace the one leader, but we don't think about what does the school need or stand in need of to make the place better. Like everybody is responsible for culture in a school building. It is not just the leader, it's not just the students, and it's not just teachers. Everybody is responsible, including parents, for making a culture strong. You know, I know that's something that we would say to our students all the time. They would say, oh, our school sucks. And we're like, well, you're a part of the suckiness because you're here, right? It sucks and you're part of it. So like, I remember kids would say to me, you know, Miss Cook, I don't have a problem with you, but I don't like this person. I said, well, then that means you have a problem with me because I represent this and this person in this organization. And so I think it's like, how do we, to your question, how do we fix it? I'm thinking, how do we bring people together and really ensure that we all are here for the same common goal? Because I'm thinking like, it all trickles down. You have your board members who have an agenda, right? And for them, it's business. Then you have your leaders, your top leaders, your heads of schools, your principals who have an agenda connected to what the board's agenda is. And then they have a job to then, again, business. Then they have a job to trickle that down to their teachers or their leaders, who then trickle that down to their teachers, who then trickle that mission down to students. But in between students is parents. And so if everybody has an agenda and everybody's agenda looks different, then I don't think we'll ever get on the same page about what we want for children. So I'll make it really plain. So if you and I started a school and our thing is, okay, we want to impact, let's say all girls, right? And we're like, at the end of the day, we want to see more girls in STEM. We want to see more girl leaders. Let's do it. That's our vision. And then that's all we talk about. More girls in STEM. And that's what we're pushing. Then we hire people who know STEM and who are going to recruit girls, right? But we don't, but the person we hired is now thinking about the social emotional piece, but you and I was only thinking about STEM. So we hired somebody who's like, okay, well, we can get girls, but there's some social emotional pieces we got to take a look at before we can get to the STEM. Then we hire teachers who are like, listen, I want to teach STEM, but there's some deficits with math. So before we can get to the STEM, we got to fix those deficits. And then you see, it's a trickle down effect. And then let's talk about the kids. You got parents like, yeah, I want my kid to be in STEM, but I don't have the money or the resources to help them because I don't know. And then you have kids who are like, well, I don't know. So then how do we make that all come together when everybody has a different agenda? You and I were only concerned about STEM and Black girls.
Right. And so now what we do is we fire everybody because at the end of the day, our job is to report to the people giving us money,
Correct.
Is there a STEM program or not? And
Correct.
Because there's no longer a STEM program, because there's been so many excuses, right? Mm-hmm. Whether or not those excuses are valid or not, there's still excuses for the reason why the program is not running off the ground. So here you have, our school has this mission specific goal of STEM, and that goal has not been obtained because of all of these different rationales that others have put in. But I was thinking about, or others have stated, but I was thinking about this, you know, the question becomes, there has to be an answer. Like there's some school systems that are doing it and they're doing it well. So this idea of what's plaguing Baltimore, and Baltimore has phenomenal schools. Like Baltimore is, my husband says this all the time, the city of the have and the have-nots, right? You have your schools that are doing phenomenal, and you have your schools not doing phenomenal. And this is interesting. There's this one school here. I've been in Baltimore, I think close to 15 years. And I've seen this school. It's one of the largest schools in the city. And I've seen this school vary as far as the reputation based upon the leader. So leadership really has a lot to do with it. At one point, nobody wanted to send their child to the school. And the school was like among the low ranks. Another situation happened. New leader came. He was actually a new leader, turned the whole school around, was there for about 6 or 7 years. The school became like a beloved, treasured in
Yeah.
the city. Now he's no longer there. The school's at a pitfall again, right?
Yeah.
So this is the deal. Leadership matters, but there has to be this idea of others supporting the leader, central office.
Yeah.
Here's another one, and my friends talk about this all the time. There's the oldest high school for African Americans, which I believe is Frederick Douglass, that's here. They have like this negative reputation. Like there's been movies done about the school. It just hasn't been positive. There was a young man who, and God rest his soul, he's no longer here. He passed away, Dr. Hurt. But he came into the school. When I tell you he turned the school around, Cook, like we started having meetings at the school. The school, like the light changed about Douglas and what Douglas meant. He really bought the honor of who Frederick Douglass was and met it with the current students at Douglass. And then for unforeseen circumstances, he abruptly left the school. Soon as he left, guess what? It went right back to on the decline. So it took time for it to move up. It didn't happen overnight. It took time for him to change the culture, to gather stakeholders to help change the culture. It took time. They actually gave the school a significant amount of money for him to change a lot of different things. And then it went back down. And so I say all that to say that there has to be an answer.
Now, I think to your point, it's making me think about great organizations have successors and systems. So it shouldn't matter who the leader is, right? If the system is in place, the organization should still run, right? And so I'm wondering if sometimes we have folks in leadership that whatever they do is only specific to them, that is unsustainable once they go, right? I'm thinking, every great leader wants to raise up another team of great leaders who they can push that torch to when they're ready to, tag out. And so I'm wondering if that's part of the reason, right? Like I'm thinking about my favorite place, I always talk about it because they have great customer service. It's like a Chick-fil-A, like no matter who's there, they're going to say my pleasure, and so it can't be only the Black people there say my pleasure and then the white people don't, or whatever group, right? We should be getting the same service no matter who's the leader. Now, every leader has a different spin, but as far as like programs and as far as like the systematic part of a place, that should be intact. There should be a blueprint for that somebody else can follow.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because let me give you an example. There are certain things that are signature to you, right? Like we're going to have an amazing ceremony. I don't care what we're celebrating for kids or students, right? That's signature to you, meaning signature, like you're going to make sure the balloons look a certain kind of way. You're going to make sure the certificates look a certain kind of way. But if you're not there, the ceremony should still go on. Does that make sense? It shouldn't be, oh, well, I can't do the ceremony because I'm not her. No. You could still do the ceremony, if that makes any sense. I think people.
That makes sense. But if you are the leader and you don't care about ceremonies, you're not going to have balloons. You're not going to have chair covers because those things aren't important to you. Typically, leaders, when it comes to those minute details, it's really based on personalities or the people that they have around. But I was going to ask you as our last question, is money the answer? So I pulled this. New York City spends $26,588 per student. Boston spends $24,000 plus. Atlanta spends $16,000 plus. Montgomery County spends $16,000 plus. Baltimore City spends $15,000 plus. DC spends $12,000 plus. If we were spending what New York spent in DC and Baltimore, do you think that would improve the state of our failing factories?
I think it's a portion, but I don't think it's the end all be all, right? And I say that respectfully as I salute my HBCU that was founded with $100 of Bible in the basement of Friendship Baptist Church that has become the illustrious, and you already know where I'm going, Spelman College. I think it's about not the amount of money spent, but where the money is being spent. because you could just waste resources. And if you don't have anyone with fidelity to carry out the resource, then all you've done is waste the resources. I can't name how many programs we've paid for, but there was no one to run it with fidelity to see the fruit of the labor. To your point about transformation takes 3 to 5 years, it does with everything, right? Like a program. So it's like we do it, and then if it seems like it isn't working, then we cut it. But we don't really know because everyone wasn't doing it. So I do feel resources and having access to money is important, but I don't think, Scott, it's the only thing that's important, because we've both seen schools do it for less because they had people invested to take what they had and make it much. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm, looking at the chat, and so many folks on our chat, have done more with less. They've been able to take their classroom and transform it into something. I mean, teachers are the only profession I know that steal from our houses and bring it to the schoolhouse. We're the only people that take out of our own homes, to make it work. So I feel like if we're strategic about how we're using that money, yes, it can make a difference. But if we're not strategic, then it doesn't make a difference. I don't think it's the money, it's the person that's controlling the resource that's going to be impactful for students and for a school community.
Yeah, so this is the thing. What is the answer?
We need to study with schools that are doing right, who are doing it right. Well, we need to figure out what they're doing. And we need to figure out what they're not doing. Where are they mastering their time? Where are they spending their time? Where are they not spending their time? Where are they focusing on that we're missing? Are we focusing on all the wrong things? Like you and I talked about uniforms a couple of weeks ago. And, for some people, some schools, that's like they're going to die on uniforms. We feel like, hey, we're not going to die on uniforms when we got kids dying in the street over sneakers, right? Certain things we're just not going to make a priority. So I feel like back to the example I gave about STEM, if STEM is the priority, then down to the most micro level, we need to make sure that kids who need help with math remediation, they're getting that right away so that we can build them up to be what we want to see in the end result. I don't think, we always think about all the pieces in between to get to the end. Yes, we scream it from the rooftops. We want these thinkers. We want kids who can read well and write well, but we're not thinking about all the steps in between to get them there. Yeah. And that's the part I feel like many of us don't have an eye for detail. We're not thinking about that. We're just thinking about the big picture. We don't have enough. What are those north, south, east, west people? We probably got too many of northern people and not enough east and west people working in between with us. We got too many southern people. They care all about the relationships, but we don't have enough people executing on big ideas. And then we got sometimes organizations where only people care about are the results and they don't care about the people. So it'd be great to get a team of people that's all those things in every department, from the top all the way down to your janitors.
Yes, I'm feeling the wave today. All of those things. Absolutely. I'll just leave it that as you stated, we definitely need to begin to really do a deep dive on those schools that are really, really doing it well. There's so many successful schools. And it really starts and ends with really wanting students to be successful and having that as the nucleus of what do we have to do in order for all students to be successful, and then executing those things.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Hold on, before you go, Scott, there was a request. Can you say, don't forget to fly high?
Yes, I will. Don't forget to fly high and have a great instructional day.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Who did that request come from?
Mr. Marsh.
Oh, yes, Marsh. It's so funny in my job now, right? I don't get to do the announcements. And can I tell you that is one of the things that I truly miss, the announcements. Nonetheless, thank you so much for tuning in. Happy Saturday to everyone. We are, like I said, I'm in Baltimore. The sun is shining so beautiful. I do hope you have an awesome chance to get out and enjoy the sun today. Happy spring, everybody. And we will see you next Saturday, same time.
Peace.